Hello there, welcome to an episode of Strife's Talking Points that I am extremely, and I mean really excited for. Coryey Booker last night apparently announced that he is running for president. It is on the front page of CNN Today in Politics. I am so excited. I've been waiting for this guy to announce his candidacy, and I don't mean that entirely sarcastically. Overall, I think he does some good stuff, but we're going to go through some of the strangeness that is Coryey Booker and his recent announcement. You can see here, of course, all the puff pieces. You've got them from CNN, ABC, NBC. They're all going directly after, his how he's tried to illustrate himself, all the stuff he's done as far as, let's just start out. Here is his testimony, and this is not over anything more recent. This is over Jeff Sessions in January of 2017, and this is the Coryey Booker that he wants people to see. This man right here. Here we go. Just teeing it up.
They are inextricably tied together. If there is no justice, there is no peace. The Alabama state troopers on the Edmund Pettus Bridge were seeking law and order. The marchers were seeking justice and ultimately a greater peace. One of the victories of the modern civil rights movement was the 1957 Civil Rights Act, which in effect made the Attorney General not only the chief law enforcement officer of the United States, but also vested in that office the responsibility to pursue civil rights and equal protection for all of America. Senator Sessions.
Now, the thing there is the Attorney General is essentially the chief law enforcement officer. His agenda is not set by himself. His agenda and what he tries to do is generally defined by either A, existing laws, or B, the president that they work for. There has been a lot of controversy over this. Eric Holder under Obama did a lot of stuff that you can find pretty readily where the people on what you consider the Republican, the right side, did not like and didn't think were appropriate, and he did a lot of shielding as far as when the IRS was found with the tax stuff on conservative groups, and now a lot of that they're saying goes against what Sessions himself is doing as far as how he proceeds with the law. However, there's not a lot going on, even with all the negative news about what Sessions is doing.
Sessions has not demonstrated a commitment to a central requisite of the job, to aggressively pursue the congressional mandate of civil rights, equal rights, and justice for all of our citizens. In fact, at numerous times in his career, he has demonstrated a hostility towards these convictions and has worked to frustrate attempts to advance these ideals. If confirmed, Senator Sessions...
Now, he's essentially referring to the senator's voting rights, because if you live in an area where, let's say, Alabama, where it's mostly a pro-life state, and you vote against some type of abortion measure, then you are against those. That's really all that's going on there.
Sessions will be required to pursue justice for women, but his record indicates that he won't.
Now, that's exactly it. He voted against abortion, and that is justice for women.
He will be expected to defend the equal rights of gay and lesbian and transgender Americans, but his record indicates that he won't.
He voted against marriage equality, which still to this day is very strange that the government restricts who and what can marry and legal definitions of such. However, up until here in the last few years, even Obama and Clinton and just about everyone else were against marriage. They wanted strong civil unions, essentially reflecting marriage. They just didn't want to use the term marriage. And now, again, that's being used in this 2017 launch, and I'll like to say now that this is his official launch at wanting to be the president.
He will be expected to defend voting rights, but his record indicates that he won't. He will.
Voter ID laws are becoming more and more common. Currently, there's the either 96 or 58,000 believed illegal voters in Texas. There's also another one coming out of Pennsylvania where I believe they're finding that illegals were registered to vote. Some states like California are trying to strip all voter identification laws and rules so that essentially you won't know who's voting. Just say the name. If it's on the roll, you get to vote. I see that voter ID and voter requirements will start coming more and more as it's much more difficult to see who is and who isn't excuse me, allowed to vote.
Will be expected to defend the rights of immigrants and affirm their human dignity.
Now, immigrants, he's actually in this statement referring to illegal aliens, not legal immigrants. And that has always bothered me. One of the reasons I'm not a huge fan of most Democratic nominees is they will not distinguish between a person who went legally to come to this country and someone who snuck in, overstayed a visa, and is now basically hiding and trying to benefit from the systems in place.
But the record indicates that he won't. His record indicates that as Attorney General, he would object to the growing national bipartisan movement towards criminal justice reform.
As the Attorney General, he doesn't make the laws, he enforces them. And we're going to drop out right there. We're already going into it. And here we go.
Association game today. Okay. The topic is the Senate, specifically confirmation hearings. We go to John Heilman. The word today. Can we get there we go.
Little.
The word today is, are you ready?
Little.
Coryey Booker.
Oh.
Word association. Coryey Booker.
Impassioned.
Yes.
Impassioned.
And.
Impassioned.
And.
Maybe I kept waiting for him.
The secret
I
word
kept waiting for him to bring
is
me.
calculating.
Now, you see how he baited him several times to get him to give him another word. Coryey Booker is definitely one of the more popular people on the left, and this is all the way back in 2017. We had just had an election. The president had been in office for 11 days, and MSNBC was already pushing the nomination of another person.
Calculate. Yes, certainly certainly Coryey Booker's speech yesterday. You could imagine maybe in 2020 that speech being part of his presidential campaign launch.
Another phrase, presidential launch.
Right.
Yes, any other?
So, presidential launch, 11 days in. So,
Testify.
Okay. I have to ask this question. We've had Coryey. We like Coryey.
and you can easily take
have-
any senator's voting, because if you vote against a bill which you don't like for XYZ reasons, the other side will turn that vote into ABC meaning. It has nothing to do with why it happened. It's just if it can be turned, and we're going to show you that
Has
shortly.
anybody seen anything as calculated, as obviously calculated as this, in a way that would have the other senators, especially Democratic
the
senators,
content was
wanting
important.
to drag him away?
Wrong venue, wrong time.
Important content.
Look at that. He's taken it back and said, this is not the place or the time to launch your presidential thing, which he actually did draw a lot of ire from other Democrats on this. And now we're going to move forward to Vox. Coryey Booker went from progressive hero to a traitor in under 2 days. This is Vox now. I'm not a huge Vox fan. However, you find the stories where you find them. Whenever he was going up, there was a bipartisan bill essentially sponsored by Bernie Sanders and a Republican, and Coryey Booker shot it down, or helped shoot it down. Why do Americans pay so much more than Canadians for prescription drugs? Because the pharmaceutical industry has bought the Congress. Backlash for Booker building for a long time. 13 Democrats who broke ranks with their party to defeat the Sanders-Klobuchar, I can't say that, amendment. Jezebel reported that Booker received $270,000 from pharmaceutical companies, which some say on the left say explains the vote. Indeed, Jones notes, who's Jones? Sarah Jones from New Republic. Indeed, Jones noted no senator has raised more money from Wall Street than Booker. In 2012, the mayor of Newark, Booker, memorably criticized President Obama for going after Mitt Romney's record on Bain Capital, calling attacks on private equity ridiculous and nauseating. He worked closely with Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg, education reformer, on improving Newark schools, a decision criticized by some for allowing private industry to influence public schools. I'm going to come back to that one here in a little while, but of course, Cory Booker seems to be part and parcel your standard person. Here's his I am Spartacus.
Having my life to an I am Spartacus moment. To know this nominee's record, in this particular case, his record on issues of race and the law. And I could not understand, and I violated this rule knowingly, why these issues should be withheld from the public. Now, I appreciate the comments of my colleagues. This is about the closest I'll probably ever have in my life to an I am Spartacus moment.
Now, what he's referring to there is the Kavanaugh hearing. Booker said he released documents without consent of the government oversight office, and however, all of these things were approved, released, and being done. He just did it. Booker was claiming that he was standing up to release of classified documents, writing by nominee Brett Kavanaugh about the use of racial profiling in airports after the 9/11 attacks. Now, when you read the documents, Brett Kavanaugh ruled that you should not and legally could not profile the racial profiling at airports. Race and gender, every statement that has come out has proven that Cory Booker was strictly going for the moment. This is a big thing about the Kavanaugh hearings, is that they say their record is clear, and then when you research and go through the record, it is extremely the other way. Kavanaugh wrote an email that he generally favored race-neutral security measures. This is the issue. Cory Booker and these other people are lining out a narrative that they really need to do for that reason. Again, Cory Booker, Clarence Thomas, without naming the Democrat, Clarence Thomas, for grandstanding last week's Brett Kavanaugh trial. Clarence Thomas did not like what he was doing. Grandstanding on it. This is closest I'll ever get to an I am Spartacus moment, referring to the 1960 film. The emails, though, had already been cleared for release, so Booker wasn't actually releasing anything, and while it drew attention to one email subject line racial profiling, smoking gun, hoped it would be. It is, in effect, that Cory Booker used the moment to explode onto the scene, be very public, to essentially push again his own name out there when it really didn't do anything. There was really nothing about it, and it was a big nothing. Cory Booker takes stage to rail against Jeff Sessions. Whole story here, after he had been essentially on stage with Jeff Sessions very shortly before on a co-sponsored thing with Jeff Sessions to do this, but when it became politically relevant for him to attack him, he turned around and did it. This is kind of the problem we have with most of these. The real reason is essentially to make note. 3 years ago, they were the Democrats pushed to eliminate the 60-vote threshold for cabinet appointees, meaning that Trump's nominees needed just a simple majority. The Democrats did this under Obama, figuring they had a lock on the next presidential campaign. And after that, now they have been... the filibuster was eliminated, and Republicans hold 52 seats. They're able to kind of pass people through as they choose, as the Democrats did before them. This is just a problem you see with the pendulum swings. I really do hope they eliminate that and go back to 60 votes shortly. However, possibly with government, that will just end. A little bit about Coryey Booker. He is highly educated. He went to one of the best high schools in New Jersey, and that is part of the story if you watch on him, how his parents were actually pushed out of a New Jersey neighborhood, or not pushed out. They weren't allowed into a New Jersey neighborhood until they got some, basically did a quasi-sting operation where a white family went in, bought the home, and then the Bookers moved into the home. As far as getting him in, ran for Newark City Council, then he ran for mayor. He was defeated by Sharp James, kind of a political insider there who had been in the region for, I think it said he was one of the longest standing mayors, had been there for several terms. In 2006 he ran. The current mayor, Sharp James, actually just didn't run, so Coryey Booker was elected. And he also was able to sweep in a lot of his city council candidates, known as the Booker team. 2010, again, ran against a lot of different people. However, he won 60% of the vote, which is pretty good overall. I'm going to go through, here's James Sharp, the guy he beat. There's actually a street fight, actually a film about this, which I find interesting that I'm probably going to try and track that thing down and watch it. It says it was on PBS, so I should be able to find it for free somewhere. And then I just kind of go through, and I ran into a story, and I wanted to learn more about it. In 2010, Mark Zuckerberg made a $100 million investment in Newark cities. I think it was $50 million to Newark, and then it was matched by another group. For that money, the founder gave $100 million to reform Newark public schools, and other philanthropists later matched in, bringing the total to $200 million. So, at the time, Newark schools graduation hovered around 60%, 19 points lower than the national average. Of those who graduated, 90% needed to take remedial classes before entering a local community college, and fewer than 40% were reading at grade level. Result in the $200 million were disappointing, according to the now mayor. The foundation had 5 years to spend the money. In 2016, closed its doors. The money didn't actually go to the city and didn't go to school systems. It went to the foundation that made decisions about where the money should be spent. We have engaged in communities that already existed. To parachute in, folks, it becomes problematic. So what do you get for $200 million? You get consultants that are $1,000 a day, $60 million into charters, schools that are privately funded. Overall, I think the biggest takeaway was that reading scores emerged. So for $200 million in a city school system, you get improved reading scores. And that was really it. I think they said math scores went up one year and they went down the next. For much of the past 7 years, Newark effort has been subject of intense interest in the education world. Booker, who is now U.S. Senator, said the gift made an extraordinary impact on schools. Zuckerberg's donation, he said, primed the pump for activism in the city for better or worse. $200 million in investment in schools did very little. Over the 8 years, applied students' academic programs didn't follow a steady improvement line. Actually, the first few years of initiative saw student achievement drop sharply in both district and charter schools. Later bounced back. Students' math recovered. Research found whether English improved beyond original levels. A separate analysis by researcher James Margolis, also released Monday, found that high school graduations and results, overall students' rates in New York had risen. So, and as I went through some of that PDF here of the story, basically the overall the money did some good with the schools. You see attendance rates rising, scores a little better. However, they're still lagging behind overall. But you do see like a 10% increase here. You see a 7% increase there. Again, behind averages. And there was also, I kind of went down a little bit here. There was also a widely admired book. Journalist, Washington Post reporter who tracked the effort for years, released a book on it. Reviews on this book are fun to read. This is one of the most disturbing, powerful books I've read in years. Point of stories: well-intentioned Mark Zuckerberg and his wife gave $100 million to help the less fortunate. The point is, they gave it to the wrong people. This deeply researched story left me cheering for teachers, crying for school children, and raging at the politicians. Politicians were everyone in the school district, the mayor, then Mayor Coryey Booker. Again, back to Coryey Booker blasting Kavanaugh. Puff piece, everything you need to know about Coryey Booker. He's 49, he's Democrat. He grew up in a white neighborhood, went to one of the better white schools that his parents had actually fought to get him into. He's seen with several high-profile women, Eva Longoria. What he's done as a senator, I don't know. The more I learn about him, the less I think he's going to be someone who can stand the test of massive public scrutiny, strictly because of what he's done overall. He's semi-effective, however, he's gone after people on the left, he's done some stuff on the right, and it's just not, I don't know. I was much more excited about him before I completed my run at research and learning about him. So, I don't know, leave your comments below, tell me what you think, and I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.